there, crocheters, it's Janie here to introduce you to the next part of the Sunshine and Showers blanket, which is the part for November. I'm feeling a bit chilly, so I'm sitting with it over me today. The part for, I think this is part 7 of the Sunshine and Showers blanket. I wanted to create a piece of crochet that looked like the outline of leaves. You know how when they get old and they've fallen to the ground, they go, you can see their sort of skeleton, can't you, on leaves? So that was the kind of idea I was going for on this part of the blanket. It's done by working various lengths of stitches and creating a wave pattern. It's actually quite straightforward and it's really an effective part of the design. You can find all the patterns for the Sunshine and Showers blanket on the website, and the following video that Emma has made for me, it will show you how to work through this part of the blanket. If you have any queries or anything that you're a bit stumped by, please get in touch and let us know and we can try and help you. There are other videos for all the parts up to this part 7, already on the YouTube channel. And next month we will be focusing on the December part, which I thought was quite Christmassy and festive, and that will be video 8, so look out for that next month. I hope you're enjoying working through the project, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Part 7 then, part 7 of our Sunshine and Showers crochet along, which means we're over halfway through already, can you believe? So we've got this lovely sort of from the blue upwards here, we've got this lovely open work, sort of wavy textural section to work here. It's a really nice one, sort of like a calm curve going through, which is really lovely. So we're in November. It's quite wet outside today, perfect weather for spending a little bit too long with hook and yarn. So there's good things about winter, there's good things about it. We've got quite a few hook changes on this one. So I've got my 4mm and my 4.5mm here, and I will of course prompt you when we need to change between hook sizes. And just a reminder, as I always do, we're going to be making 2 pieces. Okay, all the way through you're making this blanket in 2 pieces, 2 halves. So this is the completed sample piece, obviously much shorter. Completed sample piece, here is part 7. I will be working from this piece, which is completed up to part 6. So if you haven't made 2 pieces yet, just be aware you've got to make 2 of everything. So that you've got half and half to join together at the end. So let's make a start. Okay, so we're going to start on row 27 and we're going to start with Spice. And what you will see, I'm looking obviously at the right side here because you can see the pumpkins. What you will see is that Spice doesn't go right to the end. And if I turn it onto the back, it doesn't go right to the end. It starts a few stitches in. Okay, and that is completely intentional. So what we're going to be making with the Spice is this first curve. Can you see it's sort of a very slight gradual curve, and that is made just by increasing the stitch height along the row. So let's have a little look. Let's get started and see how we do that. I'm starting with 4mm hook for row 27 and Spice, which is the orangey yarn that we used for the middle set of pumpkins there. And I'm not going to start, I'm not turning the work or anything, I'm not undoing the stitch. Yours might well be on a stitch holder. I'm not undoing that for now. I'm going to ignore that because we're going to start part way in, as I just showed you. We're going to count 6 stitches and skip those and join into stitch number 7. So let's work that together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm coming into the next one, into stitch number 7, and I'm going to join my yarn in there in the usual way, which is pulling up a loop and then securing it with a chain. All right, so that is my yarn attached. Now again, as we've worked throughout, that's not going to count as a stitch. I'm going to put a double crochet into the same space, and that is just that stitch, the first stitch there. Yarn is secured, 1 double crochet. Now I'm just going to stop here and tell you later on, if you want to, you can come back and take that little loop out to get rid of it so it doesn't look quite so bulky there. So because it's just a yarn join, let me just pull that through and push it to the back, because once you've got a stitch in there, it's all nice and secure. And if I do that, you can see it's a little less bulky there. There's a little tip, and I took that tip from one of Jane's other videos, which was working neatly in the round, or tips for working neatly in the round. It's a really good one. If you've not seen it, have a look. Sorry, let's go back to the current project. So I've got my 1 double crochet in that stitch where I've joined. I'm going to make 1 chain. I'm going to skip the next stitch, and I'm going to go up a stitch size. So I'm going to go up to a half treble. So skip the next stitch, go into the next one, make a half treble, okay, make a chain, skip the next stitch. I'm going to go up a stitch size to a treble. So you can see what's happening, can't you? We're creating that gentle curve just by increasing the stitch height. All right, so again, 1 chain, skip the next stitch, and I'm going double treble, so twice around the hook. These are UK terms. Twice around the hook, skip the next stitch, into the one after. And I'm going to do that twice, so we've got sort of a plateau, if you like, at the top of our curve. Just makes that curve a little more gentle than it would be if we started to decrease straight away. So again, 1 chain, skip a stitch, 1 more double treble. Okay, so you can see what's happening, increasing. Now we're at the tallest part of our curve, so we're going to come down the other side now. So again, 1 chain and skip a stitch. So there's your that's your that's your pattern, if you like. You're doing a 1 chain and skip a stitch between each stitch. So it's fairly easy to remember. So we've got our 2 double treble at the apex of our curve there. And so I'm now coming down, making things smaller. So I'm going from a double treble to a treble, skip a stitch into the next stitch. 1 chain, skip a stitch, going from a treble down to a half treble. 1 chain, skip a stitch, and I'm now back down to a double crochet. Okay, I'm just going to stop here. We're not actually finished yet, but I just want you to see, you can see sort of what's happened. You've gone from your double, half, treble, 2 double trebles, back down to a treble, back down to a half, and back down to a double. And that has created that beautiful curve, beautiful sort of gentle curve. So we're back down to a double. Now when you look at your pattern, you may be tempted to think that is your repeat, because you've kind of hit a double asterisk now, but you're not actually at the end yet. You're going to make 1 chain, miss the next stitch, and put another double in there. All right, so you're actually ending here, this particular first repeat, you're ending with a double treble, with a double crochet, with that short double crochet. All right, so you're now told to make your repeat, and your repeat starts where I'm about to start now, which is 1 chain, and then you miss the next stitch, and you're going to put a half treble into the one after. So you can see you've come all the way down, and you're now going all the way up again, just as we did before. So 1 chain, miss a stitch, we've done our half. Let's do our treble. Okay, 1 chain, miss a stitch, we'll do a double treble, and we'll do that twice. Right, so I'm right up at the apex again of of the repeat, of the curve, and you're going to do this pattern 9 times. Okay, you're going to make these 9 of these lovely curves. Now on the 9th repeat, there's going to be a change where you stop. So I've just gone through and told you must carry on, and you must do that second double crochet. All right, so you don't stop at the double asterisk, you carry on and do the second double crochet. After the 9th repeat, so when you're coming up close, you'll be able to see that you can't get any more than 1 repeat in here, aren't you? When you're coming up to the end of that particular repeat, what you do, so I'm at the apex here, I'm coming down the other side. What you do is you stop a little bit earlier in that pattern repeat. This time you do stop at the asterisk which is that 1 double crochet. So when I get to, sorry, you top at the double asterisk. So when I've made that 1 double crochet coming down the side of the curve, I'm not going to make a second one. I'm going to stop there. That is my row 27. I've got these stitches left at the end. Again, although mine is an awful lot smaller, you can see there's you know, it's the center part of the work with these two little margins, if you like, at each end. Okay, so you've finished row 27 with a gap at each end. Please don't worry about that. Just make sure you finish with 1 double crochet only and not 2. And then you are going to turn your work, and our first hook change comes in now. So we're going from a 4 up to a 4.5. Right, so my 4.5 millimeter hook is in place, ready to go. We're going to make our turning chain, which is just 1 chain. That's not going to count as a stitch at all. And this next row, row 28, is going to be largely double crochets and a few chains. Okay, so nice and straightforward. Now, to start with, we're going to put a double crochet in the base of where we've made that chain. So that's sort of in the last double crochet we made on the last row. So there's 1 double crochet there. And we're going to put 1 double crochet in the next chain space. So that is the space between this double crochet and this half treble. So in goes 1 in there. Okay, and we're now going to make 2 double crochet in the next 6 chain spaces, because they're sort of larger chain spaces. We can get 2 double crochet in each of them. So here we go. So there's 2 double crochet in that one. That's 1. 2 double crochet in the next one. That is 2. 2 double crochet in the next one. 3. 4. 5 and 6, and that 6th space is between the half treble and the double crochet coming down the other side. Okay, so let me just stop there, and what you'll see is we've just kind of reinforced the top of that curve with some double crochet, and we've put some we've done that by putting the double crochet into the chain spaces. Right, we've now got to the center point, or the lowest point between those arches or those curves, haven't we? We've got these sort of little double crochets here, and what we're going to do is we're going to prep this for something that's going to happen in a little while by making 3 chain, 1, 2 and 3, and we are going to miss this double crochet, the chain space and the second double crochet. All right, we're not going to do anything into that little group there between my thumbs. You can see double crochet, chain, double crochet, nothing at all happening in there. All we're going to do is come up the other side and put double crochets, 2 double crochets in fact, into the next 7 chain spaces. So here's 1, 2, and so on. All right. So you're going to be working 2 double crochet into 7 chain spaces all the way along your repeats, missing that center point and putting those 3 chains across it as I've shown you there, until you get to your last curve like I have got here. Now, unfortunately, I've only got 2 curves, so you know, I have to kind of fit quite a bit in on this second one. So when you're on your very last curve, rather than doing 2 chain spaces into 7, you know, 7 times, you'll go back to doing it 6 times. All right, so you won't put 2 double crochet into the last chain space. I'll show you what happens when you get there. So you've worked all the way along your row, putting 2 double crochet into all 7 chain spaces until you get to this last one, and basically until you get to the very last chain space where I am now. You can see there's nothing beyond that, no chain spaces beyond it. Only in that one am I going to put 1 double crochet into that last chain space, and I'm going to finish by putting 1 double crochet into the very first double crochet that we made when we began. All right, so let me just quickly reiterate that. Go all the way along your row, putting 2 double crochet into all these chain spaces. You're going to have that little twiddly bit between them when you get to those 2 shortest double crochet. And when you're on the very last curve, instead of putting 2 double crochet into the very last chain space, take it down to just 1, and then put your final double crochet into the very first stitch that you made in Spice. Now, of course, this is all very well explained in the pattern, but that's, you know, sometimes a bit of visual explanation doesn't go amiss, does it? So I have finished now with Spice. I can cut the yarn. I don't know if you can see, there you go, cut the yarn and fasten off, and I will very quickly take care of those ends because they're quite the distraction. So I'll take care of them and we will move on to row 29. Right, we are on row 29 and we are getting ready with meadow yarn and a 4mm hook. Now we're going to go all the way back to Storm Blue, this Storm Blue stitch, the very last one. It may be on a stitch holder for you, but I sort of fastened mine off, and I'm going to pull back to the very last point of that stitch, which is where there are 2 loops left on the hook, as so. And I'm going to pull through with Meadow to change my yarn colour. Okay, so pull through, finishing that stitch with Meadow. Turn the work. So I've still got pumpkins facing me at this point. I keep saying pumpkins, I know they're bobbles, but in my head they're pumpkins. You know what I mean, don't you, the bobbles? All right, so I've got Meadow joined. It's a little bit bitty here, but don't worry, it'll all sort itself out. Okay, I'm now going to make, go away, 3 chain, and that is going to count as 1 treble. 1, 2, and 3. Let's just remind ourselves what this row looks like. It might be helpful actually. So you can see we're starting by filling in that margin. I called it a margin, didn't I? Filling in that margin with some tall trebles. We're going to go over the top of the curve with shorter stitches. We've got this nice little feature in the middle between curves, which you will extend all the way along. You're going to get this between all your curves all the way along your row, and when we get to the other end we will finish and fill in with some tall stitches at the end. So that's what we're aiming for with the Meadow, just so that you can see why we're doing what we're doing. Okay, so I'm here with the 3 chain I made, which counts as my first treble, which means we're now asked to do trebles in the next 5 stitches, which means we do not go down into the stitch at the base as we would if we were with a double crochet, because we'll make a stitch if we do that. So ignore all of this that's going on here with the chains. Just move along one into the next one. So a little bit different to how you treat it than if you were doing a double crochet. Trebles work a little bit differently at the beginning of this row. All right, so that's 1. I'm just going to tuck those ends under here. 2 and 5. Okay, so if you look, we've sort of filled in the margin and our hook is now at a really good height, can you see, to start building some double crochet on top of our our curves here. So we're going to start and we're going to put a double crochet into the next 13 stitches. So I'm going to put my hook into the very first double crochet of Spice here and into 13 stitches in total. Right, so I've done my 13 stitches and that brings me right up next to where we did the 3 chain to skip over that central part in our last row. I've got 1 double crochet left, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to ignore that double crochet. I'm going to ignore that chain and in fact ignore everything here. I'm going to actually work into the stitch between my thumbs here, and that is that Storm Blue stitch that sits between those 2 double crochets made in Spice. If you remember, we skipped a stitch there. That's the one I want to work into, and here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to get ready to make a treble and I'm going to put my hook into that Storm Blue stitch, but I'm not going to go all the way to the back. straight through like so. I am actually just going to make sure that my hook just goes through the Storm Blue. Can you see that the hook has just gone through the Storm Blue stitch and is sitting in front of the Spice stitches, so that when I make my treble, and I make it generously so that it does sort of come up to the very top of the level of the stitches where it needs to be. When I make it, it sits in front of that Spice stitch, but it's not looped around the back at all. The back is completely free. Let me show you what I mean. If I put a treble into the same space and go all the way through to the back and then make my treble, I've sort of created a spike stitch, and that means it's covering the front, but it's also covering the back. All right, and that isn't what we need here. We just need it to be sitting neatly in the front. So I'll show you that again, because we're going to put 3 in this same space. So there's 1. Come round again, go straight into that Storm Blue stitch, but just through the Storm Blue stitch, not through Spice at all. All right, make my second treble like so, and we'll do the same again. So just through the Storm Blue and finish my stitch. All right, so that has covered that nice little center point, and it just sort of will give the impression of this sort of nice separation of these curves into leaf shapes. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Okay, so we're back to the beginning of our repeat again, and what we're going to do now is those 13 double crochet again. All right, and you will be working this repeat 8 times in total, all the way along your row, working in, you know, just very simple double crochet stitches into the top of your spice coloured curves, and putting those little treble dividers between them all the way along until you get to the last leaf shape, which is what, of course, I am now working on. And when I get to the 13th double crochet here, I will have 1 double crochet left, and I will show you when I get there, and that is now. All right, so if I count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, you will see I've got 1 double crochet left, and I'm going to skip that. And I am now going to put a treble into those last stitches from into the last 6 Storm Blue stitches that are free, thus balancing up with the other end. Okay, so there's number 5. Here's the last one going in, number 6. Now I'm not going to finish this stitch because we need to change yarn colour, but let's just stop there and have a look what we've done. So we started out by filling in that margin with the taller treble stitches in Meadow. We went up and over each of the curves working along our row, and we separated out those curves with these green parts and sort of created these individual sort of leafy shapes, finished at the end with the taller stitches. All right, so that's row 29, and we're now going to get ready for row 30 by changing our yarn colour to khaki. Right, so here we are with khaki. I'm just going to pull that through on the last pull through of Meadow. I've cut the yarn, as you can see. I haven't worked that one in as yet, and I am going to now change the hook size again. Here we go again, and we're going back now to the larger 4.5mm hook. I'm going to make my turning chain and turn. So we're working wrong side for this one. Now, this one is a really straightforward double crochet row all the way along. There's only a little bit to take notice of. If you've noticed at the end of your row 29, you've lost a couple of stitches. Just by virtue of the pattern, you've just lost a couple of stitches, and on this row we're going to put them back. So we've got mostly a 1-to-1 double crochet into the stitches, but there's just a couple of places where we're going to put 2. So let me just show you that. So I've done my turning chain, and because it's a double crochet row, I'm going into the stitch at the base of the chain as my first stitch. All right, and I'm putting a double crochet into there. I'm going to put a single double crochet, that doesn't make sense, does it? Just 1 double crochet is what I'm trying to say, into the next 4 stitches. So 1, whoops, 2, 3 and 4, and then on this next stitch I'm going to pop 2 stitches in there, so it's a little increase right at the edge which will not show in your finished blanket. Right, so now I'm going to go all the way across the blanket, just putting double crochet, all the way across the row, putting a double crochet into each stitch all the way across until I get to the last 6 stitches, and I'll meet you there and just show you where to put the increase on the other end. Okay, so I'm coming up now. This is the last double crochet before I hit the last 6 stitches, and you'll see where that is because it's where your trebles begin, and into the next stitch that's where I'm putting the 2 double crochet, so 1 in and 1 in the same space, and that is the only twiddly bit that you need to worry about. So I'm just going to finish the rest of the row with double crochet, and the very last double crochet goes into the top of the 3 chain that we made when we began this row, so just into the 3rd chain if you can get it in there. All right, and again not finishing that stitch because we are about to change to gold on the last pull through. Right, we're ready for row 31, and I'm changing to gold yarn. And I am also going to change to a 4mm hook. So yes, there is quite a lot of hook changes in this section, isn't there? And we're going to turn the work and get ready for row 31. Little bit of pattern note here. We're going to actually start this row with a half treble. All right, now normally when you start a half treble row, your turning chains will count as your first stitch, but Jane has made a very clear point on her pattern that she's not going to do that. We're going to make our turning chain, which is 2 chain, and that will not count as our first half treble. We're actually going to put a half treble into the base of those chains, and she says that's to keep the edges firmer and so that we don't lose stitches again. All right, so no hardship for me there. So normal half treble. All right, and I've just caught those ends in so that they're nice and neatly out of the way. So I had my 2 turning chain and a half treble at the base of those chain, and we are ready to go. Now I'm going to just show you the little sample piece again. We are now starting more curves, but if you can see, the first lot of curves that we're going to do here are kind of underneath. All right, they're underneath, so they're in the opposite direction to the spice curves that we made. The gold ones are sort of dipping underneath. Then we have that spine running right through the centre and the curves across the top. So it creates, again, that nice sort of suggestion of a leaf shape. So that's where we're going with our next few rows. So similar pattern. We've started with a half treble. We will do 1 chain, miss a stitch. Our next tallest stitch is a treble, so that's going to go in there. And we will skip a stitch again. Our next tallest stitch is a double treble, and just as before, we're going to have 2 of those sitting at the top. So that's 1 and that's 2 before we start coming down the other side. So the pattern is familiar to you. We've done it before, we've just started at a different point. 1 chain, skip a stitch, back down to a treble. 1 chain, skip a stitch, back down to a half treble. 1 chain, skip a stitch, back down to a double. One chain, skip a stitch, another double in there. 1 chain, skip a stitch, half treble. All right, so that your repeat is now going to start, which is we're going to do a 1 chain, skip a stitch and start with the treble. So that's the 1 chain, skip a stitch, start with the treble is where your repeat starts, and you're going to repeat all the way through to the very last so you're going to repeat 10 times, and you are just going to cut your last repeat off a little bit short, and I'll show you when I get to that point, because I've got a couple more this time. So that was a treble and double treble. So my double trebles here are falling each side of that lovely sort of centre point that we did, the centre cluster that we did in Meadow Yarn. So that's a good anchor point, isn't it? If you're ending up there, you're in the right place. Okay, so I can see now I'm on my last repeat, and I have done I'm about to start my last repeat. So 1 chain, skip a stitch, treble, and this one I'm going to finish sort of not right at the end of the repeat. So I'll show you what I mean. I've done my treble. I'm now going to do those 2 double trebles at the top. There's 1. Here comes 2. Down to treble. Okay, and I'm going to chain 1, skip a stitch, and here is where I'm going to end my repeat. My last half treble, which is the end of the last repeat, should fall into the very last stitch. All right, so you can see now how that's worked out. We started with a half treble, we've ended with a half treble, and we've bounced along in these lovely curves all the way along. Now at the moment they look like they're sort of rising up, but when we add the next 2 rows, you'll see it sort of forces them into a downward curve. It's a very clever sort of illusion, optical illusion. Right, we'll turn the work and we'll go straight into row 32. And row 32, we're going to change again to our 4.5 mil hook. Just put my yarn in the right position. Okay, work is turned. And I'm going to make my turning chain with my 4.5mm hook, and all I'm going to do now is put 2 double crochet into each of the chain spaces along. So nothing goes, no individual double crochet to start the row or anything, just straight into putting 2 into those spaces all the way along. Okay, and I'll just do that, and I will show you just the reminder at the end to pop that individual double crochet in. So bear with me, I will see you in a moment. Okay, last chain space with 2 double crochet in, and we're going to finish just by putting 1 double crochet into that stitch where we started. And I don't know if you saw what I did there, I just used my hook to hook that up so it's easier to get into that end stitch. Okay, so we've now started to put that spine across the center, which is going to make things just look amazing with the finished gold skeleton leaves. So I'm going to turn again, and yet again we have a hook change. So say goodbye to the 4.5 mil again, and we come in with the 4. All right, and what we're going to do is the same, just complete the other side, if you like, of the leaf skeleton. So we're going to work exactly the same as row 31, in fact, which is we work those 2 chain, if you remember, and that doesn't count as our first half treble. Our first half treble goes into the stitch at the base of those chains. So there's our first half treble, and off we go on that pattern again. So it's 1 chain, skip a stitch, so skip my stitch there, going up to a treble, and it just will mirror what we've already put in. So 1 chain, skip a stitch, and here we are with our double trebles, and so on all the way along. All right, so familiar pattern. Just check yourself as you go so you can see that you're matching stitch lengths. And it's the same as before, so you've got all those repeats till you get to the very end, and you should stop your repeat and finish with a half treble. So I'll see you there. Okay, here's that second double treble on my very last repeat. 1 chain, skip a stitch, put in the treble, 1 chain, skip a stitch, and lovely, we're on the last stitch, oops, for the half treble. So that's worked beautifully. I am just going to finish that stitch for now. We have got to go back through to khaki. We've got to change to khaki, but we'll bring that back. Just want to finish that so you can see the effect. You can see lovely, lovely, yeah, the leaf spines. It's just so clever. I love it. It always leaves me a bit lost for words, and I'm always very relaxed by this point. So time for a break for a cup of tea for me, but you won't notice that. We'll come straight on now to row 34. Right, so I'm here at the end of row 43, and I've just taken my stitch back 1 stage. I'm on that very last half treble, but I'm going to do the last pull through with khaki because we need to change yarn to khaki on the last pull through. All right, so the very last pull through of row 33. I've changed the colour to khaki. Oops, I've left that end a little bit long, so I'm just pulling that through, and I'm going to turn the work, ready to start row 44. Again, we're changing hook size once more. We're going from the 4 up to the 4.5, so I'm ready to go with the 4.5 in place to start row 34. And row 34 is worked the same as row 32. Sorry, I'm reading the pattern, can you tell? As row 32. And row 32 is us putting all those lovely little 2 double crochet into each space all the way along to the end, and then we just pop that 1 lone double crochet into the stitch at the end. So I will gallop along, which is a joke because I'm one of the very slowest crocheters. I will work along just putting 2 double crochet in this lovely khaki colour all the way along. I'm working on the wrong side here, all the way along to the end. I'll see you at the end. All right, I'm coming up to the end now and still doing 2 double crochet. I've got 1 more chain space to go. There's 2 double crochet in there, and I'm just going to finish, if you remember we've done this before, just by putting a double crochet into the top of that final stitch. And I'm not finishing the stitch with khaki. Instead, I've got lovely lime waiting in the wings. I'm going to pull through with that. I will snip khaki, turn the work, and we've got no hook change or anything. We've got a nice simple row of double crochet to work again now, which is row 35. So row 35, we're ready with lime. Got a few yarn ends there. I'll sort those out shortly. So there's my turning chain, and for row 35 it is just straightforward double crochet all the way along. So just don't forget that very first stitch at the base of your chain. Don't miss that out, else you just lose that stitch. So that's the only tricky thing. So 1 double crochet all the way along, and we'll fasten this one off. We don't do any colour change, so I'm going to get to the end, fasten off, and I've taken care of those ends as well, so it will look nice and neat. So just row 35, lime, row of double crochet. Okay, here I go, 2 more to go. And that's the very last one. Right, so that is just, as you can see, a nice, neat, straightforward row of double crochet. So I've snipped that yarn, and I will fasten that off, and I'll get rid of some of these ends, and we will be ready to move on. So far, so good. Okay, we are now at row 36. Now, row 36, if I show you, is the first of the cream rows here. And we're going to do something a little bit different in that we're going to work into the back loop only of the stitches that we've just made, the lime stitches that we've just made. And I don't know if you can see, but what that actually results in is this nice little ridge. You can see the little ridge of the lime running all the way along the work. It just gives a different textural effect on your work. It's used fairly frequently as a nice way to, as I said, make a different textural effect. It also leaves a loop available to work into if you're doing sort of surface crochet, so longer pieces of crochet that will come down and hook into that, as an example. So if this is a technique you've not done before, it's ever so easy and has some nice decorative uses. So let's have a little look at that. Right then, let's join our yarn into the back loop of the first stitch. So ordinarily we would join our yarn by putting our hook under both strands of the stitch like so, but we're just going to go through the center of the stitch and pick up the back. Simple as that. Everything else stays the same. So pull up a loop, and I'm going to start by making 3 chain, and that is going to count as our first 1, 2, 3 as our first treble. Now the other thing of note with this row is that we have another of our lovely sort of rolling gentle wave, so we will be working through the heights of the stitches again. This time we're starting with trebles, and we're going to do the first 3 chains counts as 1 treble, the next treble into the back loop of the next stitch. This is just the sort of setting up part. We're not in our repeat yet. All right, we're just setting up. Okay, and we're now doing half trebles, 2 half trebles into the next stitch. So 1 half treble into the next 2 stitches, again into the back loop. There's 1 and there's 2, and we are now going to start our repeat. So our repeat is as follows. We've got 3 double crochet. So 1, we're at the very shortest stitch, aren't we? 1, 2 and 3. We're now going to put in 2 half trebles, 1 and 2, 3 trebles, 3 trebles, back down, oh sorry, no, not back down, back up again to double trebles, 3 of those. So our very tallest stitches, 3 of those. 1, 2, 3. 3. Okay, so we've gone from the shortest to the tallest. We'll come back down the other side now. So 3 treble. Oops. Don't forget we're working back loops only all the way along, and you'll see what is happening. You can see that nice line being left, which is the unworked loop of the stitch. So hang on, where have I got to? 1, 2, 3, so I've got 1 more treble. And 2 half treble. Now it's an easy pattern to remember. This is the last part of our repeat. All the stitches are in 3s except the half trebles, they're in 2s. So 3 of everything except half trebles, you get 2 of those. So that was our repeat. So our repeat started with the 3 double crochet. We went right up to the largest stitch, the double treble, and we came right back down again, and our repeat ends at the half treble. So I'm going to do that again, and you're going to work that repeat 9 times. So I'm going to work through until I get to sort of the fictional end of the 9th repeat, and we can just see how we finish this row. Okay, so here I am at the end of what will be the 9th repeat. All right, and I'm just going to finish off by doing 1 double crochet into the next 3 stitches, back loops only, 1 half treble in the next two, sorry, half trebles in the next two, and finish with a treble in the last 2 stitches. So 1, so that's balanced exactly what's happened at the other end, and 2. There we go. So let's see, and you can see just about, and in your work you'll be able to see it nice and clearly, that nice sort of ridge that's happened in the lime stitches there by working just 1 loop of the stitch before. So it's really, really pretty, a really nice technique. Give that a go if you haven't before. Okay, so we're moving on now to row 37, and we are yet again changing our hook. Just keep an eye on those hook changes because they are frequent, and we're going to turn our work, make a turning chain. Okay, and all we're going to do all the way along, back to working through both strands of the stitch as normal. Just going to put 1 double crochet in every single stitch. Oops. Every single stitch to the end. Our very last stitch will go into the top of the turning chain, so I'll just show you that when I get there. And get ready with your graphite, because we'll be changing to graphite on that last pull through. Okay, you can see I've got graphite waiting in the wings here. I'm coming through to the end of the row, and make sure you get your last stitch into the top of that 3 chain that you started the cream rows with, because it's really easy to overlook that, and it does obviously affect your stitch count. So I'm going to just pull through with the graphite and then turn the work, and we can see what's happened there with the cream. Let's have a little look. Gorgeous. So you can see what's happened with the last 2 rows of cream. Firstly, we created this nice textural effect by working back loops only. We've then gone ahead and put a row of double crochet in, and that has almost straightened out for me, almost straightened out the top edge of my work. I'm going to finish with 2 rows of double crochet in the graphite, and that will absolutely straighten everything out, make everything, the edge will be nice and straight again, ready for our next part. So a couple of things to say with these last 2 rows of double crochet in graphite. First of all, don't forget, when you're starting your double crochet, we've had a bit of backwards and forwards with what we do with the beginning stitch, but on your double crochets, your first stitch goes in at the base of where that chain is. Okay, so you won't lose a stitch there. Then regular sort of double crochet all the way across. But one thing I wanted to say is, do check your stitch count now. This is a really good time to check your stitch count, because you've got 2 clear rows of double crochet here in a good dark colour. So if you need to add in a couple of double crochet stitches to make your stitch count correct, this is a very good place to do it. Little bit of a cheat, to be honest, but if everything else is looking good and you're just 1 or 2 stitches down on the width of a blanket, to a little extra, popping a couple of little extra double crochets in is not going to, it's not going to make draw anybody's eye. That's what I'm going to say. It's not going to draw anybody's eye. So good time to do that. So I'm just going to work all the way across this row. I'm catching in a couple of yarns as I go. So it's another lovely thing, little reminder, thing we can do when we're working double crochet. We can crochet over an end or 2 to save ourselves some sewing in later. So 2 rows of double crochet in graphite. I will finish that, and we will have a look at those 2 finished pieces together. Nearly finished on the second row of graphite. So this is row 39. There's the last stitch going in. Now you're asked to put your stitch on a holder. I'm just going to loosely draw the yarn through, and I can unpick that later. So let us have a little look. Lovely, here we go. We've got our sort of leaf skeletons and actual individual ones here, separated by the little trebles. And we've got this gorgeous, very gentle curve echoed all the way through or repeated all the way through this section. We've worked into front loops only. So again, some nice little techniques on this one. Gentle introduction to some lovely techniques. Don't forget, you have got to do all of that gorgeousness twice to make sure you are working on both sides of your lovely Sunshine and Showers blanket. So that is it for this part. Hope you're enjoying it, and look forward to seeing you in part 8.